Hello, so let's finish off this section then by looking at irrigation next. So irrigation is where we are adding water to fields where water is a limiting factor. So we're removing water shortage as a limiting factor. And the reason it can be a limiting factor is because plants will only open their stomata which are used for gas exchange if there's enough water to keep the guard cells turgid. So if there's no gas exchange, there would be no photosynthesis and no growth or crop production. So if we add water by irrigation, we can increase the amount of growing that takes place. And also water is a solvent. So it's useful for nutrients are absorbed by plants dissolved as ionic forms. Okay, so without that water, we're not going to get growth. So we can, by irrigation, we increase our productivity and our yield. Okay. Now this is great and it sounds fantastic. It's really useful for growing stuff in hot, sunny countries, which water is the only limiting factor. There's plenty of sunlight, nice temperatures for growth, but not enough water. However, there are some downsides, and one of the main ones is salinization. And this is where the soil becomes salty, either by the water being used being for irrigation being salty and evaporating, or by it drawing up salt by capillary action, basically. Which is quite a big issue in desert areas. So that's quite bad because it then reduces our soil fertility because it's outside the zone of tolerance. And we get osmotic dehydration. And you can also get aquifer depletion. Or river depletion, or whatever the water source that we're using, if our abstraction is greater than recharge. Our next one then is soil compaction. Now this is never intentional. So soil compaction is where we are compressing the soil by weight being applied to it, and this collapses soil pore space. So what sort of weights might we have? Well, typically things like tractors are not particularly light, and if one of those drives over your foot, that's going to hurt. And the soil agrees. If it has tractors going over it, that compacts the soil, which is why you see some tractors with really wide wheels to try and spread the load. Cattle are particularly heavy things. And they can, because they're heavy and they've got small hooves, that means a lot of weight is applied to the soil, and that can cause compaction as well. So cattle and machinery. And soils with limited pore space in the first place, so clay soils, are especially at risk from compaction. And this will result in reduced soil aeration and increases waterlogging or risk of waterlogging. And both of these, then you get anaerobic conditions. So you get denitrification, losing that nitrates, which are important for fertility of the soil, and you get reduced decomposition. So you get less nutrients being released by organic matter in the soil. And you also get things like reduced root penetration. And the last one then is pH control. So what we find is soils have a habit of becoming more acidic with time. And this is because rain is slightly acidic and it builds up in the soil. And this then affects or reduces nutrient levels. So farmers can amend soil pH by adding lime. Okay, and lime is full of OH minus ions, and this neutralizes acid, which is our H plus ions. And that increases the pH closer to neutral, making sure that nutrients are not being leached out too fast and they are adequately available. Now, the downside of this is you have mining impacts because limestone is mined to produce lime. And this also has a large energy requirement. So it takes lots of energy to do this, and that's typically using fossil fuels, which means that we have greenhouse gases being produced, and therefore potentially contributing to global climate change.